everyone, welcome back to Underreported Stories, where I cover the news that CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News failed to report on or don't report on enough. And I am coming to you very sleep deprived after last night. If you are in the Tennessee area, if you know, I really don't need to explain it to you. But if you don't, which is obviously the majority of you, well, I have lived in Nashville for like 4 years now and have yet to experience real tornadoes. Like, they've hit other parts of Tennessee, but never like the metro Nashville area. And last night and also Monday night, we had the emergency notification system going off, and it blares. Like, it comes from your phone. It's so loud, it wakes you up. It went off probably 5 or 6 times last night. Not to mention, like, we had all just had this go on Monday night, and that was happening again last night. The sirens were blaring, like the tornado sirens outside, and we all had to go into shelter, and this all decided to take place from like 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. Now, luckily, no one was hurt. There were no actual tornadoes that happened in the metro Nashville area, although there has been crazy flooding that's been taking place in this city. Like, I'm talking water up to driver's seat level of cars. It's crazy. We're praying for those people, and obviously, we're probably going to be on the ground helping people as well with the local church and whatnot. But oh my gosh, these tornadoes last night, or the tornado warnings, were absolutely insane. And I don't know if there's any way to like communicate with the tornadoes, but guys, for the love of God, could you just happen during business hours? Like, if you wanted to tornado from 2 to 5 in the afternoon, please just stop disturbing my sleep. I'm begging you. I don't know if anybody hears that. I'm just kidding. I know I probably sound a little crazy. Anyway, it was really scary. I'm not over it entirely. And you have to you can't really trust the weather channels, obviously. So there's a YouTuber named Nash Severe Weather, and we just all listened to his live stream the whole duration. It was actually super impressive. They do a live stream for 7 hours from 1 a.m. to 8 a.m., which is crazy. The whole tornado warning, the entire time it was in place, they were just live streaming. Really impressive. I couldn't do it. Anyway, speaking of YouTube, actually, I dropped a video on body positivity yesterday. Now, usually on this channel, Monday or Tuesdays and Thursdays, you guys are getting an Underreported Stories podcast episode because our podcast audience is growing very quickly. And so, I'll pull some clips in an effort to reach new people on YouTube, but rarely do I do a video just for the channel because it takes a lot of effort and time and editing and blah, 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 blah. But I decided that if I felt very, very convicted about a topic that I really wanted to bring out to you guys, I was going to take the time to make little bonus episodes. They're available on Spotify and Apple if you are in the listening audience, but they're also available on the YouTube channel, and they are made for the YouTube channel. They have a good visual experience that you get alongside of it. So I felt very passionate about this issue about body positivity and this influencer, Remy Bader, who really brought that information or that issue back to the forefront. So when you are done with today's show, go check it out because it was super fun to create and film. So anyway, we are also going to switch up the show a little bit today. Don't worry, I'm not throwing too much at you. But before we hop into the stories, we're going to play a round of Is It Real or Is It Satire? A segment on the show that makes you wonder,
is it real or is it satire?
You cannot be serious!
A 3-year-old girl in the UK was reportedly expelled from a nursery school after a teacher claimed she made transphobic remarks. According to the child's mother, the incident occurred when the 3-year-old girl pointed at a male teacher wearing makeup and asked, "Is that a boy or a girl?" The school said that question is harmful to the inclusive environment and proceeded to remove that child from class. My first question is, what the F is that man's problem? You are talking about a grown man who prefers to wear makeup. And it's unclear whether he identifies as anything different than a man, but from my understanding, he's a man. And he's wearing makeup. And there's a 3-year-old little girl who's asking a question because a grown man is engaging in behavior that is not normal or not normally associated with men. And we're going to punish that little girl because she had a question. A grown man. It's not even about whether the school does it. The school in and of itself doing that, awful. The grown man not stepping in and saying, hey, I'm not offended by this, whatever. Obviously, it was problematic to the grown man to want to punish a 3-year-old child. Now, I can't even imagine the delusional mindset it takes to want to punish a kid for asking a question. In that moment, if you are a teacher too, you're a teacher in a school setting, you get asked a question, you have the opportunity to, quote, teach. Now, the best thing to say is, oh no, I'm a boy. I'm just wearing makeup and I know that's not normal, whatever. Or just say, no, I'm a boy. Just answer the question. You don't even need to propagate this whole, some boys wear makeup thing. Just, I'm a boy. Answer the fucking question. It's not that hard. Punishing a child for asking a question, that's downright evil. Taking offense for something, too, just a small, curious little kid asking you, and then you getting offended by that to me speaks volumes about this man as a person. He should be disgusted with himself. He is taking his mental problems out on a child. Now, I want to take away the hot button issue of this, right? You're rolling back that we're talking about transgender ideology, which is, I know, controversial. The ramifications of punishing, expelling a young girl that asks questions or is curious, that is going to trigger a crazy emotional psychological response for things. Now, when she views the world, asking a question or being curious about something results in punishment. To me, that is the exact way that the left or these crazy ideologues want the world to work. It's a mind game. It's a way to indoctrinate children. If you ask questions, if you question the narrative, there will be punishment. Therefore, we don't question, we just follow. That's indoctrination. It also does such a disservice, especially to young women, and here we like to acknowledge that there are differences between little boys and little girls, okay? Women have very keen instincts. We just do. Not to say men don't. They have lots of primal instincts that we don't. But there are just protective instincts that women are born with. And when we are indoctrinating children, specifically female children, into thinking that their instincts are something to ignore, that they shouldn't question things that feel off, that is telling those children that curiosity is a vice and not a virtue. It is a virtue to question things, though. That is why I'm so against this ideology, because it stifles, it chokes out curiosity. Any ideology that stifles curiosity and, gives pushback for simply asking questions is not one worth advocating for. And this is not a limited instance, by the way, this one singular kid. Not at all. I'm not making a mountain out of an anthill or a molehill or whatever the phrase is. The UK's Department for Education data shows that a total of 94 students at state primary schools were suspended or expelled for exhibiting transphobia or homophobia. Now, we don't know every single instance. 1 or 2 of these instances could be really absurd and bad. All 94 of them could be. Although I highly doubt it, given the story that we know. And we do know for a fact that 10 of those 94 children who were suspended or expelled for alleged transphobia or homophobia were aged 7 or under. 7-year-olds getting expelled for wrong think. Okay, this is where I take massive issue with this, though, is that even the way I'm talking about it, I'm like kind of wanting to reframe it a little. I hate that this has become a partisan divide. This is not a partisan issue. This is a logic, common sense issue. No logical person would think that this is normal, okay? I am a firm believer that there are a handful of issues that the major parties, Republicans and Democrats alike, do not align with their base on. There are very common sense issues that most average liberals believe Democrats as a party take too far. For instance, your average liberal, they don't want abortion up until birth, okay? They are absolutely fine with 12 to 15-week abortion bans. It's the crazy zealots that show up with signs that feel differently, and then the party reflects the people that come and protest. I don't think liberals are on board with minors undergoing transgender surgeries or being punished for asking a question that a kid would ask. Is that a boy or a girl? Now, this is a direct result of this ideology, of course. We know that. But I think your average liberal doesn't associate it that much. Now, I'm so thankful because we don't really have to deal with this as much. The UK doesn't have the free speech laws that we have. And I know we have some UK listeners out there. So guys, my heart goes out to you. It really does. And you always have a place to, let your free speech fly in the YouTube comment section here. But, wow, this is a really intense story. And I just don't think that we could see something like this, but we have the judicial system and the free speech laws that we have here. I would hope that we wouldn't be seeing the same thing here. But as for our UK friends, y'all, this sucks. It really does. I do have one more little mini story I wanted to address before we get into the actual stories. So, I don't know if you guys saw this last night. Libs of TikTok posted it. I'm going to pull it for the video for you right now. But a 31-year-old women's fencer refused to fence against a biological male opponent. So you can see in this video footage that 31-year-old female Stephanie Turner took a knee before competing against a biological male seen in the video named Redmond Sullivan. As a result, Stephanie received what's called a black card, the most severe penalty in fencing, that led to her immediate disqualification and expulsion from the event. She was then escorted out of the venue. USA Fencing has defended its decision, citing their, I believe it's 2023 transgender athlete policy that allows for this. What I found to be incredibly compelling about this story was the political shift that went alongside Stephanie's decision to refuse to compete against a biological male. So Stephanie told, I believe, Fox News that she's a lifelong Democrat, but amidst having to compete against biological men, she began identifying as what she's calling a new Republican conservative. And she said she made this switch because she felt the left had abandoned women's rights in sports. And I think that really circles both stories together. It brings me back to exactly what I was saying earlier, right? That this idea is not popular among the masses. It is a fringe idea that, yes, the Democratic Party supports. I'm totally cool with us saying, Democrats support this. They do. It's nuts, but they do. And then they treat it like a fringe idea. And I think that's what's so crazy to all of us is we're like, how is this crazy? How are we in the perceived minority by mainstream news outlets? Because a New York Times Ipsos poll, I know, super conservative, guys. No, they're far left, or at least left of the left. The New York Times Ipsos poll found that 79% of Americans oppose the idea of biological men competing in women's sports. And I'm just like, you guys, do not be gaslit into the idea that your average liberal believes this, or you should fall prey to this idea that, men belong in sports, not believing that is a fringe idea. It's not, okay? We are in the majority. Most normal people think this way. If you are talking to somebody who believes the opposite, they are a fringe minority and probably not worth engaging in a conversation in. But I swear, if you guys have a conversation with a normal average liberal, they will not believe this. Anyway, I feel like I'm playing defense for the liberals today. I'm not. I'm just trying to remind everybody that we're not crazy. Most people agree with us. And if we just keep fighting for these common sense ideas, we're just going to keep bringing people into the fray, which, love it. Anyway, let's get to our docket. Here's what we're going to be talking about in Underreported Stories today. So, kind of crazy, odd story, but I was personally taken by it, so I figured, you guys might like it too. So, NASA is laying off employees, but is refusing to cut one notable employee. Hint, hint, has to do with diversity. Also, I want to talk about YETI acting like it's 20 and refusing to work with a conservative women's group. Plus, we're going to get into the fallout from President Trump's student visa crackdown, as well as the Tuesday night special election results. So, without further ado, let's get into the 5 underreported stories that you need to know. I love uncovering the truth, whether it's in politics, media, and even the truth about what's in our so-called cleaning products. Most of these store-bought cleaning products are loaded with toxic chemicals, hormone disruptors, and allergens. And during allergy season, come on, that's the worst thing we possibly need. This is stuff that can impact your health, your kids' health, and even your pet's health. Who would want to do that? That's why I made the switch to Branch Basics, exclusively for Harper. I'm kidding. No, their products are completely non-toxic and human-safe. No synthetic fragrances or any of those weird chemicals. They use plant and mineral-based formulas that leave your home truly clean without compromising your health. If you, like so many other listeners, are ready to toss the toxins, head over to branchbasics.com/Chrissy, or you can use the link in the description and use code Chrissy, CHRISSY, to get 15% off your order. Again, use code Chrissy at checkout. NASA operates what's called a jet propulsion laboratory located in California, and in 2024, before Trump took office, NASA laid off 530 contractors and 400 employees due to budget shortfalls in Congress. So the contractors and the employees, these were actual scientists and engineers behind these programs, and they had their jobs cut. But do you know who still has a job? Neela Rajendra, the lab's chief inclusion officer. So here's what NASA did. When posed with the dilemma of firing scientists and engineers at a space laboratory, NASA opted to save the DEI official instead of the scientists and engineers. And this, I think, ties so perfectly into the argument that the right has been making about the astronauts who were abandoned in space. I went and did a little digging. The astronauts who were up in the ISS for like 9 months longer than they were supposed to be, and it wasn't because of politics. They were abandoned there because of a faulty propulsion system. This is the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Okay, that problem was created by the lab that opted to fire contractors, scientists, and engineers in order to prioritize DEI over science. And if you say that, you're a conspiracy theorist. But when it's proven true, are we still considered conspiracy theorists, or are we just right again? Now, I really am so sick of hearing the left say, we just need to trust the science. The science, the science, the science. When they go and they have operations in, like NASA, where they put their ideology over science that results in leaving 2 people up in space for 9 months. And you're probably curious, as was I when I was doing research for this, whether this woman is still employed after Trump signed that executive order banning DEI in the federal government. Oh, guys, she is. She is. The NASA lab didn't fire Neela Rajendra. No. They just created a new role for her. She's now the chief of the Office of Team Excellence and Employee Success, which is the exact same role with a different name. She's going to oversee the lab's affinity groups, which, if you don't know what affinity groups are, these were very problematic when we were learning about what was going on at public schools in 2020. They're essentially groups that are divided by race and gender identity. So I don't know about you, but it sounds just like DEI to me. This woman will also oversee the Black Excellence Strategic Team, or the BEST team, which sounds like DEI to me. None of this is getting rid of DEI. This has been the problem I've been having, not with the Trump administration. They are really trying their level best. It's with these universities trying to circumvent it. What they're doing is they're rebranding DEI to inclusion, belonging, team of being the bestest westest, like whatever the hell they're renaming these programs to. We see that with Disney. I did a whole video about it about 2 weeks ago about DEI's fake getting rid of their DEI. They're just rebranding it. Tons of universities are doing this, notably the University of Michigan, putting out this whole statement, oh, we got rid of our DEI policy. Really? Because if you click on the DEI website, it's just the only words that are changed are like DEI to community. It's like the same shit is still being pushed. Now, what I've been arguing is that these programs operate in the shadows, and I am a firm believer that sunlight is the best disinfectant. So these programs operating in the shadows just means they're going to get stronger and, kind of culminate together over the next 4 years. And if, God forbid, like Kamala or Gavin Newsom gets in office next, boom, these programs are all going to just like bust out of the sunlight instead of being, having to start from square one. We have to eradicate these programs. We do. We have to get rid of them entirely. Changing their name is not helping anything, and NASA should be doing that, not in the name of, abiding just by Trump orders, while that is very important. They should do that because they care more about science and engineers and not having astronauts stuck in space for a month than they do about somebody's skin color. I don't know. Maybe I'm just crazy. I'm not. I know I'm right about this. Anyway, next story I want to get to is a story I swear I had to look at the timestamps for. I was like, are we sure it's 2025 with this story and not 2020 or 2021? Because we would have heard a story like this every day at the peak of woke culture. But apparently it's just not fully eradicated. The DEI isn't fully eradicated. The anti-conservative messaging from massive companies has not been fully eradicated. I have hope because we're only like 74 days into the Trump administration, so we have time. But this story really had my blood boiling. So YETI, like the coolers, has decided to cancel orders for a conservative women's group because they wanted custom YETIs that had the word conservative women on them. And they don't work, YETI, apparently, with any group that does politics, even though they are happy to provide customized YETIs for Black Lives Matter or LGBTQ groups. The Claire Booth Luce Center for Conservative Women put a thread together on X that just kind of tells the whole story, so I'm going to read that for you. They tweeted, "So YETI coolers tried to cancel us. We thought cancel culture went out with 2024, but here we are. This is what happened." What did I say? This is our YETI mug that we've ordered in bulk from YETI before. If you are in the listening audience, it's like a light blue YETI coffee tumbler that says Claire Booth Luce, Center for Conservative Women, with like a little Statue of Liberty emoji. It's cute. It says, "We needed a restock, so we ordered them again, and everything seemed to be going smoothly." They then went on to say, "We received multiple confirmation emails saying our order was being processed and all set to go." I'm pulling these up so you can see the receipts. Okay, it says, "Great news. The products in your order are ready to be customized." And the date is March 20th, 2025. The post goes on to say, "But then we got denied. Canceled. Our order was canceled because our logo includes the phrase conservative women. It says your order has been canceled. YETI is unable to customize products with text or logos that are licensed, copyrighted, profane, or political in nature. If there's another logo within our guidelines that you would like to move forward with, please let us know." This cancellation was sent after the confirmation emails and even after our payment, which they spent, what was that, like $1,600 on YETI mugs? Damn. Oh my gosh. They said they talked on the phone today with a YETI sales manager. She told us the phrase, quote, "conservative women" is on the political aisle, so they cannot provide us with the product. Here's the thing, though. Keep in mind, the Claire Booth Luce Center for Conservative Women is a nonprofit. It's a 501c3 organization, which means legally they are not political. They can advocate for policy, but they are not inherently political, which I know sounds counterintuitive to people who aren't in like this whole politics, public policy thing every single day. But basically, there's a reason why we say conservative and liberal versus Republican and Democrat. Republican and Democrats are aligned with, the Republican, the Democratic Party, whereas conservative, liberal, those are more aligned with something like ideology, values. They're not inherently political, while we do try to associate a set of values with each side. The more I'm thinking about it, I know that YETI claims it's the word conservative that they dubbed problematic, but I'm kind of wondering if they think woman was problematic too. Like, woman probably violates their inclusion policy or some crap like that, so I wonder if it wasn't even the word conservative. It was just, women can't have those. Just so stupid. And like I noted earlier, YETI has allowed political engravings in the past. They have Black Lives Matter mugs, LGBTQ slogan mugs. Like, if the argument is that we can't get political, then I understand not putting no, even then, you're telling me that the YETI is not going to make a mug that says GOP on it with a republic, with a rhino. don't know. I just think they either need to redefine what their policy is and say, we work with, we don't do anything partisan or anything along those lines, or they need to admit that they were lying, which is what's happening here. They were lying and they just don't want to work with a conservative group. That's exactly what's happening. They're just trying to get their way out of it. That makes them crappy people. Although I didn't see what it was, but the Center for Conservative Women, they had said something along the lines of like, we're going to ask you to do something with the mugs. I just don't know what they did. Like they had like some whole PR campaign. So maybe check out their X account. It was, on the screen if you're interested, but I'm not going to pull it up right now. It's not worth anybody's time. Anyway, if you're interested, yeah, go check it out for yourself. And moving on. So anti-Israel students are opting to self-deport because the Trump administration is now cracking down on student visa holders, and this has sparked a whole online debate that I really want to get into. So if you guys haven't heard about this guy, his name is Momodou Taal. He's a Cornell international student who announced he's leaving the U.S. after his student visa was revoked for his participation in anti-Israel protests. Now, something that struck me as just a little odd about Momodou Taal is I went to do some research on him yesterday because I put out an Instagram reel, a TikTok on this subject. And I was doing a little bit of research, and he has 37,000 followers on X or Twitter or whatever. That's like not nothing. It takes time to amass a following like that. So he's clearly hyper involved in this whole political arrangement, in the whole movement, the pro-Palestine movement here in America. Like he's clearly got a lot of ties. And so the State Department revoked his visa and requested that he turn himself in to ICE. Instead, what he did was file a lawsuit hoping to block the deportation of himself and other visa holders in his situation. A judge denied his request. Then he had the opportunity to file a second motion in court, and he decided to leave the U.S., citing fears for his safety. He left us with one final, long note, but really the whole gist of it was the quote, "Long live the student intifada." So there have been two competing worldviews about this subject. Some people are really excited for the deportation of students, and I think that's a lot of you guys. You're looking at students who hold these very anti-Western views and you're excited by it. And also, let me be clear about this. Advocating for terrorism against a Western country is anti-Western. Think what you want about Israel. I've been multiple times. It's a Western country. And I saw someone say that this is a student advocating that we shouldn't fund endless wars. That is such a twist on reality. I am all for not funding an endless war. But calling for a student intifada it has nothing to do with the war. It's a call for people to engage in forms of violent terrorism against Israelis all across the world. That's anti-Western. That's just anti-Western in and of itself. Western values place a deeper morality on the value of human life than maybe other cultures do. I believe it is inherently anti-Western to call for violent terrorism against a group of people. Feel free to debate me. I'm happy to do that. Do so in the comments. But that's how I see it. So, yeah, we're calling for the deportation of anti-Western students. And West includes us here in the US and Canada and the UK and pretty much all of Europe, okay? The other valid theory that people are bringing up and they're concerned about is the due process rights of student visa holders. And I've seen a lot of people say that student visa holders don't have due process rights. Literally, I see them in my comments and I'm like, guys, that's not entirely true, okay? So I went and did the research for you so that you can be informed and so you don't comment silly things like student visa holders have no due process rights. Again, not true. They have limited due process rights. So you're halfway there. Non-citizens have a right to a fair hearing before being removed or deported, which again, we saw with Momodou Taal. Students with visas must at least have a notice for the charges for the reason of their visa revocation. These visa holders are not given free legal representation like we would here in the government or in the US as citizens. The government will not provide that representation for them. They have to pay for it themselves, okay? But they should and do have an opportunity to challenge those allegations in court before they are forcibly removed, which is what we see with Momodou Taal. It's what we see with Mahmoud Khalil. Momodou Taal was afforded due process by going to an immigration court and paying for his legal representation, and he lost, so he sent himself home. The U.S. government has a very good claim against these people and pretty much a right to revoke these things while people can still come back and say, I would like my due process. That's fine. You can go and do your due process and go through the court hearing and pay for all the legal fees or whatever. You're likely still going home. And honestly, if you just self-deport, that is so ideal. Because think about how much money it costs to undergo all of this, Now we don't have to utilize ICE resources. We can save those resources if people who know that they're going to leave, who know that they're going to lose these cases, who, they can't afford the leave, whatever, just go home. Go home. And whether people were like, I advocate for the due process rights of people or send them all home, I think most people, I'm going to venture to say somewhere in the 65% range. The general consensus from the audience is student visa holders are a guest in this country. And I can actually speak to this issue directly. Remember, I'm Canadian. So when we came to the country, we were on a green card for 13 years. And I'll never forget, my dad got a speeding ticket driving like 45 and a 35 on this road that we drove down all the time, like right next to my neighborhood. He got a speeding ticket, and it was truly the most frightening thing. My sister and I had to be pulled out of school. We were probably in elementary school. I had a password journal, which if you guys know what password journals are, that my mom like bribed me out by saying like, you can play with your password journal if you leave school or whatever. And I was like, great. And we had to drive downtown, and we had to get, deal with our whole immigration lawyers just to deal with a speeding ticket, which my dad was in the wrong. I'm like fine to admit that. But we knew from a young age that if we got in trouble, even though we were here legally and we weren't on some like special, like we were here legally, there was a chance that we would not be afforded citizenship and ultimately be sent back to Canada. It's so simple. And so I think that's like the general consensus of people online is like, I get that these students have some sort of due process. I understand that they have different views and ideologies than us. But at the same time, like, you are a guest here. Treat this country with respect. If you hate this country and you want to see it all burned down, then like, why the hell are you here? Go to college in your own country. And then you're going to have people, well, their schools aren't good. Well, then why the hell are they trashing America if they don't have anything at home because their ideologies got them to a place of like political turmoil or shit schools? I know we're on the same page. I don't need to explain myself. Today's show is brought to you by my merch line, Based. So you guys know I'm an independent journalist for real. Like, I do this all by myself, and I need you guys and your support of this show. And the best way that you guys can do that is by purchasing a hat, a hoodie, or even our Based Not Basic tote. I've been taking it to Trader Joe's a lot, and let me say, it's my favorite. Instead of just asking you guys for donations to fund this journalism that I do, my business partner and I created this line of merch called Based Apparel. Based is the opposite of woke. It means you're based in logic, based in truth. You get it. Literally all of my influencer friends that are in this world love the Based hat. I sent it to them, and they wear it all the time. It's so cute. So if you want one, head over to basedinlogic.com to check out our latest apparel. My personal favorite right now, it's the Based two-tone shirt. It's black and white. It's so cute, okay? And remember, when you buy this merch, you are directly supporting me and this show. Thank you so much. I really want to talk about what happened in Wisconsin, but naturally, I'm not going to talk about like the special election aspect of it. I want to talk about the underreported story aspect of it, because, that's my whole thing. So the people of Wisconsin elected this far-left judge named Susan Crawford, but also on the ballot was a referendum on whether to add photo ID requirements to voting, and no one's talking about this. Now, voter ID has been billed as incredibly controversial by Democrats. Really, one of the most common arguments you'll hear is that it's racist because Black people have a disproportionate access to the DMV or something like that, so they don't have IDs, which, can you think of something more racist to say than, Black people don't have the mental capacity to do something that we all have the capacity to do? It's so offensive and so rude. So anyway, that's kind of how the left has always framed this. But This referendum would enshrine voter ID into the state constitution of Wisconsin, and it was on the ballot alongside this judicial nomination or judicial election. Basically, what it means is that if the people pass it, Democrats cannot do shit about this. If this passes, Democrats cannot appeal or repeal this. Guys, it passed. There will now be a constitutional amendment in Wisconsin to require photo ID to vote. And I should add, it overwhelmingly passed. 70% of voters supported this. This issue for years has been billed as controversial by the left, by mainstream news outlets. And you know what? It never was. This is bringing the whole show like full circle again. To me, this is the most common sense reform that you are ever going to see. We knew that. You go and talk to somebody on the street and they're like your average liberal. They're like, yeah, why wouldn't I show my ID to vote? That's fine. Like I show my ID to get a pack of cigarettes. I show my ID to, get on an airplane. I show my ID to, I don't know, get a drink. We all have IDs, okay? And I think it's just nice to see that people went out and voted for a far left judge, and then they still voted for a common sense election integrity reform, because this is just common sense, to my point. This is something liberals can absolutely get on board with. And I think that that's really hard for some people to grasp their mind around or like wrap their mind around, because I saw a lot of comments when I made a video about this. One comment that stood out as particularly interesting to me, and I'm not calling this person out, I'm just like, I thought this was so thought-provoking. Her name was Krista Paulman. She said, quote, "How do we get the ID passed by 70% and still vote for Susan Crawford? It doesn't make sense." And I get where she's coming from, because the majority of the comments that I was reading on my Instagram post about this election were, something sketchy. Something weird happened with the vote. And listen, I don't have all the information about this vote quite yet. I completely understand being skeptical, and people that are saying this are coming from very logical conclusions about election problems that we've had in this country for a couple of years now, right? However, from conversations that I've had with my liberal counterparts, I 100% see how someone could vote for a liberal judge and also vote for such a common sense. I don't think you guys understand what a common sense issue this is. Quite literally, only idiots would not vote for this. Like, only the wokest of the woke are not voting for this. And so I was trying to understand, like, wrap my mind around, okay, let's put myself in a liberal shoe. Like, how would I get there? Doing a little bit of research and trying to understand what it was like on the ground, which I can't fully understand because I wasn't there. But what I understand is that Susan Crawford, that the liberal judge that won, was billed as protecting abortion rights in Wisconsin. And I think people who leave the conservative bubble would actually be very shocked to find out how many conservatives are actually pro-choice or believe in abortion that's permissible up until like a heartbeat bill. Those people believe that abortion rights should be, somewhere in that 5 to 12 week range, maybe smaller. And they also just want like tax cuts and voter ID laws. They're very common sense. Someone that comes to mind is Emily Saves America. If you guys are familiar with her, she's like all on board with simple conservative values in terms of like tax cuts, voter ID laws, not letting illegal immigrants into the country, but she's like very openly pro-choice. And I think people split their tickets all the time because of this. Because the parties, like I said at the beginning of this show, don't always represent the values that the base have. They mimic the values of the most extreme people in the base. And I think that's what's really fascinating about this, is that we're seeing an instance in which people were perhaps, again, there could be something fishy going on, but perhaps we're splitting their ticket for abortion issues and simultaneously, seriously, one of the most common sense ideas that we could have in American politics. And what's also fascinating about this is I was thinking, like, the internet probably has a lot to do with this increase in what we perceive to be, or what we perceive to be an increase in split tickets, right? Because yes, the internet exposes like so much American stupidity, but it also allows people to consume content at such a rapid rate and make different decisions that align with their values. And we are just a more political and more in tune with politics culture. And so I think split tickets are going to become more popular the more that we talk about these issues, right? A vote for Trump and then Democrats down ticket, or, a vote for Kamala and then Republicans down ticket, I actually think it's a lot more common than people think about, or they want to talk about. And that's mostly because, let's be honest, we only care who you voted for at the top of the ticket. Even though, it does matter that you're more of an independent if you, maybe vote for a Republican at the top and Democrats down and vice versa. And I say all that to say, I absolutely see a world in which people voted for Susan Crawford and were like, duh, I want my elections to be safe. I'm not saying something fishy didn't happen. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, from my experience living on this earth, I absolutely see a world, especially somebody that grew up in the Midwest, where something as common sense would pass like this while simultaneously electing someone who seems borderline moronic. Anyway, let's get into our final story, which our final story is also going to be a segment because the two, I just couldn't give you this story without making it a segment of random racism.
Random racism!
A school district is being sued because someone thinks that the Spartan mascot is a symbol of white supremacy. I really sincerely thought we left this shit behind in 2020, but apparently not. This school district is in Long Island, Brentwood School District, and it originally had a Native American mascot. And then, insert woke era, they opted to swap the Native American mascot, the Warriors, for a Spartan mascot. Apparently, that is not woke enough. William King Moss III, he's a parent and an NAACP leader, he claimed that the Spartan mascot, not the Spartan mascot, is offensive to women and people of color. I understand that this reads like satire. I'm aware. It could have been a real or satire segment too, but no. This is real. This man believes that the Spartan mascot is racially problematic and, quote, sends the message that enslaving indigenous people and excluding women from the military are acceptable. Okay? I personally can't even wrap my mind around how you come to this conclusion. Nonetheless, why people give so much attention and obsession to mascots? Why do you even care about this? When I think about mascots, I'm like, oh, yay, I'm a Spartan, right? Actually, ironically, I was a warrior. We were the Wabansie Valley Warriors, okay? That's where I went to high school. We're the Warriors, then we were Spartans. So this man is like, I feel personally victimized. Raise your hand if you feel personally victimized by William Moss King, whatever his name, the third. Yeah, me. Why? Why do you care so much at all? I don't even think about this stuff. It's like, yay, there's a little Spartan on the sideline. Who cares? Don't understand why this is a battle at all. What I will say is that I find it so fascinating that the NAACP openly advocates so passionately for not rewriting American history and ensuring that we tell the story about America, her good, her bad, her ugly. And personally, I'm actually really okay with that. I think we learn from history, and therefore we should tell the good and the bad about history. Getting rid of a mascot because of the history of the Greek people is whitewashing history. Let's learn about the history. And then people will come to their conclusions. Obviously, if you show people what went on during, the time of the Spartans, or if you go to Rome and you look at the time of the Colosseum and what people were doing there, no one's going to look at that and go, oh my gosh, what a role model. We should bring back public executions. What a good idea. What? How? I actually would really like to know what mascots would be acceptable to this man. At risk of being problematic, does he want his daughters to be at a school for what? What are they going to name? The Brentwood Baddies? And we got Megan Thee Stallion and Cardi B as the logo? Would that make this man happy? I'm going to get canceled for that. Oops. But please, why don't you guys drop thoughts on what you would rebrand this mascot as to make this man happy? Wrong answers only, okay? Just like my Megan Thee Stallion one. And by the way, while you're in the comments, if you're a real one and you made it to the end of today's show, will you drop the tornado emoji as an homage to the fake tornadoes that ruined my night's sleep last night? Anyway, I will see you guys back here on Tuesday. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked what you heard, please be sure to subscribe and leave a comment about how beautiful, intelligent, and funny I am. And if you want more content, click right over here for more videos and clips of my show. I'll see you back here next time. Bye.